Hey everybody, it's Officer Mike here at KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a police officer. I've been a police officer for about 24 years now, and currently I'm training at KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu for about the past 2.5 years now. And so I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the importance of, as police officers, training in some type of defensive tactics or ongoing, continuing training. And for me, Jiu-Jitsu kind of fits the bill. I've been an officer for quite a while now, and I've had the opportunity to experience probably 10, 12 different defensive tactic systems. They all have their own little style and merits. They all have their gaps, so to speak, where they're deficient in some area. Just outside of law enforcement, you know, I've been involved in martial arts for quite a while as well. I started training back in '86 in a reality-based martial arts. Did that for a very long time prior to getting into law enforcement. And after I got into law enforcement, I kind of stepped away from that for a little bit and started training in judo. Probably 2001 when I started training in judo, and now I'm here at Jiu-Jitsu. And you know, when I first started here, I thought I was pretty good, had a pretty good grasp on fighting and how to control people. But I learned very quickly that Jiu-Jitsu is a total different animal. And I use this with some of the guys that I work with. It's almost like in my little environment, in my world at work, where most of the guys train very little. There's a few that train a lot, but for the majority of officers, they get very little training. So in that environment, I was pretty good. You know, it was almost like being the big fish in a little pond syndrome. And this has really taken me to a whole nother level as far as skill sets and being able to slow things down when you're involved in a confrontation. You know, adrenaline starts flowing, stress is going, stress levels are high because of the uncertainty of what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with, and being able to get into a dominant position, a control position, and slow things down can really be beneficial for officers. You know, some of the other systems that I've seen out there that rely heavily on striking, you know, they work sometimes, and I'm not here to knock any system by any means, but I do want to kind of remind everybody, you know, in today's society, as police officers, we're really scrutinized on everything that we do. There's so many cameras out there filming everything that we do, every interaction that we have, and you guys all know as well as I do, it never looks good when you punch somebody in the face, and if that's your go-to and somebody's filming that, you know, it can create problems for you. So,
caught on camera, another Denver deputy misbehaving. This deputy has been suspended for using martial arts moves on an inmate seen there.
For me, Jiu-Jitsu fits that bill because it doesn't necessarily rely on striking.
What are you? Whoa! No reason to. Why are you hitting? Why are you hitting him, bro? What the? What the? Yo, why are you hitting him, bro?
And it gives us a lot of other tools where we can, like I said, control somebody and dictate the pace of it. And when we're dictating the pace of the fight, it inherently brings our stress levels down, which also allows us to make better decisions during that struggle or that confrontation. You know, if we can make those good decisions, take in more information about that situation, we can better assess what's going on, and that just adds to us having a good resolution to that problem. So, like I said, it gives you options where if you have to strike, I mean, obviously do so, right? But you have things prior to getting to that point that you can utilize. Get inside that striking zone, get the clinch, work on takedowns, get to a controlling point or a position. And man, if you look on YouTube, there's tons of videos out there of officers utilizing jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu based systems. And getting a good control position, and they don't have to use strikes. They can if they need to, but it really, like I said, it allows us to slow things down and dictate the pace and make better decisions and have more options.
And he's off. Stay right there. Get on the ground.
Resisting.
Get on the ground. All right, right into a rear naked choke. Awesome.
Man, I always, here's something that I utilize, an analogy that I utilize with my recruits when I'm teaching recruits. When we utilize a taser, there's no dial on it, right? If I deploy my taser, 2 probes come out, they stick the guy in the torso, and they get 50,000 volts for 5 seconds, right? We don't get to dial it down. If at 2 seconds into the experience they want to surrender, well, they get the additional 3 seconds. We don't dial it down. You can't adjust our level of force there. It's all or nothing, right? When we go hands-on, we have different levels of force that we can use. And for me, having that level of proficiency, you're going to dictate the pace. And if I end up doing a takedown on you to try and gain control of you over you, if I need to start throwing strikes or using joint locks or something a little bit harder to get you to stop fighting, if they're working, great. Then I can tone it back down and just hold you in that position until I can get either help or get you to comply enough to get you in the handcuffs, right?
Okay, you got his waistband. Stop! Strain out your waistband.
All right, you can see him right there giving him a few palm strikes to the face, trying to get him to get his hand out of his waistband.
Strain out your waistband.
Sometimes people lie to us and they fake compliance, and if I need to, I can. If I start notching it down, so to speak, and you're just faking compliance, I can always notch it back up. So it gives me flexibility. Or if I need to, I can disengage and transition to intermediate tools or whatever I need to do. You know, and as far as striking arts go, I've seen them work, but I mean, here's the thing too with other martial arts systems, and by no means am I knocking any other martial arts system, but the reality of it is, if I'm geared up, if I'm in full kit, I can't kick somebody in the face. I just physically can't do it, you know, because you have so much gear on, you're not going to lift your and. Secondly, it's not very safe. I mean, it's really pretty easy to catch a leg, and it's always discouraging talking to guys who practice striking arts, and they make comments like, well, I'll hit him until he complies or submits, or I'll knock him out with one punch. And it's like, that may work, but it doesn't happen very often. And if you watch the UFC or any kind of MMA stuff, you know, and that's, I don't want to say that's our proving grounds, but it does give you a very good sense of how durable the human body is. You know, guys get hit in the head a lot, and I've seen, you know, people with some pretty serious injuries continue to fight. So we have to keep that in mind. And, you know, just being realistic about whatever it is we're doing. Here's my thing. I tell guys all the time, because of my martial arts background, they'll ask me, Mike, what style is best? And it's like, you know what, bottom line is jiu-jitsu's for me. It may not be for everybody. If you like doing a striking art and you enjoy it, go do it, because you're gonna reap some benefits from it. You know, having that face-to-face time with somebody that's trying to punch you, you know, it's basically stress inoculation. And the more I can put myself in training in a stressful situation, the more comfortable I become in that stressful environment. And again, that when it happens for real, my stress levels are already lower than the average person who hasn't experienced that fight per se. So that's one of the things that you know, when you're doing SWAT training, you know, we run drills constantly. We do force-on-force stuff to get the stress levels up, and so then when it's time to do it for real, you've done it so many times in training, it's still stressful, but it's not nearly as stressful. Having that good understanding of what is translatable to law enforcement, what's translatable to the streets. Like I said, if you're doing a striking system and you really enjoy it, then that's awesome. But just remember what is translatable to law enforcement, So, because not everything, and even in jiu-jitsu, not everything is translatable. Ryan talks about all the time, we can't pull guard. That's not a smart thing to do. If you're doing a triangle choke and somebody picks you up, you got to let go, in a real deal, because if you get slammed on the street, it's pretty much fight's over, right? So we highly emphasize, and rightfully so, our firearms training. Not every police officer is a gun guy. Some officers don't really care to shoot a whole lot, but man, we got to be super proficient with our weapons, right? Because we're accountable for every bullet. But the reality of it is, not very many officers get involved in a police shooting. So we spend a whole bunch of time training on something that for most officers will probably never happen. I don't want to say never happen, but statistically it's very low. But on the flip side of that, we drive every day, all day long while we're at work. And the probability that we're going to have to fight somebody. And when I say fight, there's different levels of fighting. So as a police officer, we use that terminology fairly loosely. We had to fight this guy to get him into custody, whereas truly he may not have been trying to hit me, but he just didn't want to go to jail. I mean, it could be as simple as I'm just doing this and locking my hands under my body, and I won't let you have it. But the probability that we're going to get into some kind of struggle, I don't want to say daily, but probably depending on where you work, how busy your agency is, it could be daily, it could be weekly, but you're going to be involved in some type of confrontation, physical confrontation, at a much higher rate than you will be involved in a shooting, for sure. So. And again, that's kind of goes back. And here's on a personal note too. It's hard to get some police officers to buy in on the importance of continuing training in a defensive tactics system, because a lot of times it's not fun, and it depends on the instructor. I've had instructors over the years who like to show you how effective the technique is, and they do it at 110%, and people get hurt, and people don't want to get hurt. Officers don't want to get hurt because, honestly, if I get hurt, I'm on light duty. I can't work off-duty gigs. It cuts into my paycheck. I don't want to do that, right? Guys, and I get that. So that's part of the stigma why some officers don't like to train. But on a personal note, for me, it's, some guys like to run. Some guys like to lift weights. Some guys like to go fishing, as a stress relief. For me, getting on the mat is a good stress relief, and it helps keep me in shape. It's part of my physical fitness regimen. From that aspect, it's just helps to balance me out. Plus, I've got all these guys that I get to hang out with, build some camaraderie outside of the PD, and because bottom line, that's a job, and I'm not going to be there forever. I'm coming to the end of my career, and when I retire, there's a few of the guys that I've worked with in the past that I'll continue to stay in touch with, but a lot of that camaraderie will fade away just because I'm not there in the mix, right? So this kind of is my second or third family, for lack of a better term,
Do you think that police organizations should push a little bit more for martial arts and jiu-jitsu and things like that?
I do, but man, there's a stigma with that, because now it's like, oh, well, we're training our guys to fight, and now they're going to be more apt to fight. No, it just becomes, it's a misunderstanding, a lack of understanding, not a misunderstanding. It's a lack of understanding of what the martial arts are and what it does to somebody as far as their confidence goes, their mentality goes. People can read officers pretty well. The people that we deal with on a regular basis, they have pretty good people skills. They can read body language pretty well, and they know who the victims are. They know who the other predators are, right? Because that's what they do. A lot of times they're looking for victims. Who am I going to rob next? Who am I going to take advantage of? So when officers show up, that is a translatable skill. And officers project confidence or a lack of confidence. Even though we're in uniform, we have all those tools. If you're nervous and you step onto a scene and you're nervous, a lot of people can pick up on that. And if they're apt to take advantage of you, regardless of your position, then they're going to try. They're going to do that, And with martial arts, it gives you that sense of confidence. When you walk into a room, people kind of know that this guy can take care of business or that guy can't, And so it can, just that alone can dictate how things play out on certain calls, And it also, I see too, sometimes with a lack of confidence or a lack of abilities, guys tend to become more vocal to try and assert their authority.
Oh, yeah.
And that can also backfire on you because literally, if you don't have the tools or the ability to back up what you're saying, that can create problems as well. Because most of the times if you go in and you talk to people like a normal person and tell them, hey, this is what we need to do, this is how it's going to play out, and that's it, instead of barking orders at them. Sometimes we have to bark orders, but in most situations, if we talk to them like a rational person, we can get a lot of compliance that way as well. And I think martial arts gives you that confidence to be able to do that, to get in front of somebody and talk to them. Even though they're being confrontational, I know what my abilities are and what my skill sets are. So that doesn't rattle me too much when somebody's talking a lot of trash, So just closing like Ryan does, hey, be safe out there, train hard, and enjoy your Christmas holidays. Mike out.